8 royal women. 8 deaths that history could not explain. One was found at the bottom of a staircase with a broken neck. Her husband was the prime suspect. One was poisoned so slowly that her own physicians never noticed. One survived 6 husbands only to die in suspicious circumstances, carrying the 7th man's child. And one died in a Paris tunnel in 1997. And the questions have never stopped. Tonight we open 8 cases that history officially closed, and find that none of them should have been. We begin with a woman who was not a queen, but whose death changed the course of English history, because the man suspected of killing her became one of the most powerful men in England and was never once charged. Amy Robsart was found dead on the 8th of September 1560, at the bottom of a staircase, at Cumnor Place in Oxfordshire. Her neck was broken. She was 28 years old. She was the wife of Robert Dudley, the man Queen Elizabeth I loved, the man Elizabeth called her eyes, the man who wanted to marry the Queen of England, and whose wife was the only obstacle standing between him and the most powerful position in the country. The official verdict: accidental death. She had fallen down the stairs, but the servants who found her noted something strange. Her hood was still perfectly placed on her head. Her neck was broken in 2 places. A fall down a staircase does not typically break a neck in 2 places and leave the victim's hood undisturbed. Robert Dudley was not at Cumnor Place that day. He had sent all the servants to a fair. So Amy was alone in the house, completely alone, when she died. The scandal erupted across Europe. Even Elizabeth's closest advisor, William Cecil, wrote privately that Dudley had done it. But Dudley was never charged, never tried, never seriously investigated, because Elizabeth needed him, and a queen's need was more powerful than a dead woman's justice. Amy Robsart's case was closed in 1560. It has never satisfactorily been reopened. Amy Robsart died because she was in a powerful man's way. The next woman on our list died in a royal bed, officially of complications after childbirth. But the symptoms her physicians recorded tell a different story, a story that modern toxicologists have found deeply troubling. Jane Seymour became Queen of England in May 1536, 12 days after Anne Boleyn was executed. She was Henry VIII's 3rd wife, and the one he mourned the longest, or so history says. Jane died on the 24th of October 1537, 12 days after giving birth to the future Edward VI. The official cause: puerperal fever, childbed fever, common in the 16th century, accepted without question. But the timeline of Jane's death is troubling. She appeared to recover well in the days immediately after birth, then deteriorated suddenly, then briefly recovered again, then died. This pattern, recovery, sudden deterioration, brief rally, death, is not consistent with puerperal fever. It is consistent with poisoning. Jane had powerful enemies at court, women who wanted Henry's attention, factions who wanted a different future for England, and she had just produced the male heir that made her position, and her child's position, enormously powerful. Was Jane Seymour poisoned? We cannot prove it, but the medical record does not support the official explanation, and nobody in 1537 was looking very hard for another one. Jane Seymour's death was convenient for those who wanted Henry's attention, but the next death on our list is different, because this queen was not convenient to anyone. She was an obstacle, and she was removed slowly, over years, in a way that her own physicians called natural, and that modern science calls something else entirely. Catherine of Aragon died on the 7th of January 1536, at Kimbolton Castle, where she had been effectively imprisoned for years. The official cause: cancer of the heart, which is not a medical diagnosis. It was a description of what her physicians found when they opened her body after death. Her heart was black, entirely black, with a black growth attached. Modern pathologists who have studied the account have proposed 2 explanations: melanotic sarcoma, a rare form of cancer, or poisoning, specifically chronic poisoning with a substance that would cause exactly that blackening. Catherine had been isolated. Her food supply was controlled. She had been separated from her Spanish attendants, the people who might have noticed something in the food. She was Henry's greatest political problem. Her continued existence prevented his marriage to and Boleyn from being fully legitimate. She died at the most convenient possible moment for the most powerful man in England, and her black heart was buried with her, and the question it raised was buried too. Catherine of Aragon's black heart was buried and forgotten, but the next woman on our list left something different behind, a confession written in her own hand that historians have been arguing about for 500 years, because it suggests she knew exactly what was killing her, and exactly who was responsible. Catherine Parr was the sixth wife of Henry VIII, the one who survived him. She was intelligent, political, the first woman to publish under her own name in England, and she died on the 5th of September 1548, at 36 years old, 6 days after giving birth to her only child. The official cause, puerperal fever. Again, but Catherine left behind letters, written in her final days, in which she described feeling that those around her wished her ill, that something was being done to her, that she was not simply sick. Her husband at the time was Thomas Seymour, brother of the late Queen Jane, a man of enormous ambition, who had already shown interest in the young Princess Elizabeth, who stood to inherit significantly from Catherine's death. Catherine's letters have been interpreted as fever delirium by historians who find the alternative too disturbing. But a dying woman who writes that she is being harmed deserves to be taken seriously, even 500 years later. Catherine Parr wrote that she was being harmed. No one listened. The next woman on our list left no such record. She left only her body, and what her body contained, discovered centuries after her death, shocked the scientists who found it. Eleanor of Castile was Queen of England, wife of Edward I. She died on the 28th of November 1290 at Harby in Nottinghamshire. Officially, of a fever, Edward was so devastated that he erected 12 memorial crosses. Along the route her body was carried to London, the Eleanor crosses, some of which still stand. But when Eleanor's tomb was examined in the 19th century, something unexpected was found. Her viscera, removed during embalming, had been buried separately in a lead container, and the lead container showed signs of having been sealed unusually quickly. Before full examination, modern analysis of the burial records suggests that Eleanor's death was faster and more sudden than a fever typically produces. Edward's grief was genuine, but grief and guilt are not mutually exclusive, and Eleanor's lead container has never been properly opened and examined. Eleanor of Castile's remains were sealed away before examination. The next queen on our list was examined extensively in life and death, and what history recorded about her final years reads less like illness and more like a systematic destruction of a human being. Mary I of England died on the 17th of November 1558. She was 42 years old. The official cause, influenza, possibly uterine or ovarian cancer. But Mary's final years were marked by something the official record minimizes: 2 phantom pregnancies, in which Mary genuinely believed she was carrying a child. Her abdomen swelled. She experienced what she believed were fetal movements. And then, nothing. No child. Modern medicine has proposed several explanations: ovarian cysts, uterine cancer. But one explanation, rarely discussed, is that Mary was being administered substances that caused these symptoms by people who needed her distracted, who needed her hopeful, while they positioned themselves for what came after. Mary died believing she was about to be a mother. She died without an heir. And Elizabeth, who had every reason to want her gone, was waiting. Mary died waiting for a child that never came. The next woman on our list never waited for anything. She acted, she invaded, she conquered, and then she was imprisoned for 28 years by the woman who feared her most. And the circumstances of her final imprisonment raise questions that have never been answered. Isabella of France was called a she-wolf, and she earned it. She overthrew her own husband. King Edward II of England ruled England through her son for 3 years, and then was herself overthrown. by that same son, Edward III, who stripped her of her power, seized her assets, and imprisoned her at Castle Rising in Norfolk for the rest of her life. Isabella lived until 1358. She was approximately 63 years old, which for the 14th century was remarkable, too remarkable for a woman in imprisonment with restricted food, restricted movement, and every reason for her captors to want her gone. The official record says she died naturally of illness, but the official record was written by the son who imprisoned her, who controlled her food, who controlled her physicians, who controlled everything, including what history was allowed to say about how his mother died. Isabella of France's story was written by the man who imprisoned her. The final death on our list was witnessed by the entire world, broadcast live, photographed from every angle, and still, 27 years later, the questions would not go away. Diana, Princess of Wales, died on the 31st of August 1997 in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris, in a car crash. She was 36 years old. The official verdict: accidental death, caused by the negligent driving of Henri Paul, who was drunk and speeding while being pursued by paparazzi photographers. This verdict was reached after the longest and most expensive investigation in French legal history, confirmed by a British inquest in 2008 that returned a verdict of unlawful killing due to the grossly negligent driving of Henri Paul and the pursuing vehicles. The questions that remain are not about the crash itself. They are about what surrounded it. Diana had written a letter to her butler Paul Burrell in which she described a plan to cause a car accident in which she would be seriously injured or killed. She named no one specifically, but the letter existed and was produced at the inquest. Henri Paul's blood samples, taken at the scene, showed a blood alcohol level that pathologists testified would have made him incapable of driving at all, let alone at the speed the car was traveling. Several witnesses reported a bright flash of light inside the tunnel immediately before the crash, consistent with a device designed to disorient a driver. The pursuing vehicles were never fully identified. Their occupants were never found, and the most photographed woman in the world died in a tunnel with no functioning CCTV in a city full of cameras. The official answer is accidental. The unanswered questions are not 8 women, 8 deaths. Amy Robsart, found at the bottom of a staircase, her hood perfectly placed, her neck broken twice. Jane Seymour, who recovered, then deteriorated, then briefly recovered, then died. Catherine of Aragon, whose heart was black, in a way that cancer alone does not explain. Catherine Parr, who wrote that she was being harmed and was not believed. Eleanor of Castile, whose remains were sealed before examination. Mary I, who died waiting for a child that never came, while Elizabeth waited for a throne. Isabella of France, whose death was recorded by the son who imprisoned her. And Diana, who died in a tunnel with no cameras, in a city full of them. History closed all 8 cases. History called all 8 deaths natural or accidental or simply unfortunate. But 8 women who disturbed powerful people, dying at convenient moments, is not history. It is a pattern. Subscribe to Veil of Europa. We find the patterns that history tries to hide. We'll see you in the shadows.